Hail, hail, hail to the primal light. I bow to the primal guru. I bow to the eternal truth. I bow to the great supreme wisdom. I bow to the great supreme intelligence. Hail, hail, hail to the primal light. Blessed sunlight. Today's big question is, who are the gods? Am I a god? And do I need to give my soul to God? Today, we are going to demystify the gods. Know that your God is your devil in disguise. I'm going to repeat that. Your God is your devil in disguise, is your Satan in disguise. So we're going to demystify the gods today. We're going to look at the electrical beings called God, who was taken the human form and in a body. We're going to look at the magnetic beings who was taken on disembodied form and they explore the world without a body. The gods. You are a god if you sleep and ego has risen. If you are sleeping and ego has risen, then you are a god. If you explore the world as the ego and not in awareness of yourself, you are a god. Who are the gods? Your God is your devil in disguise, the magnetic beings, and wearing illusion over your eyes. Yeah. Demystifying the gods. The gods classify themselves based on their mental state and the roles that they play. All of the beings are classified as gods because they don't know themselves, but there's a differentiation between them. The archangels are the self-replica of the self-consciousness, and the aliens could be any one of them. They classify themselves as aliens when they want to play tricks with human beings. And also the aliens are the other magnetic beings that come from a different realm, from our realm. And then devils and satans now are the ones where their minds are the most deranged. They have the worst mental state, the devils, satans, and the demons. And the demons are also when they send the self that used to be human beings, when the gods them control them and send them to harm others, they call them the demons. And so the ancestors, and they call themselves angels, all depend on the role that they are playing. So which one of the gods are the most dangerous? The most dangerous of the gods are the Satans and the devils. Their mental state are severely corrupted. They are the extreme crazy ones. People do the blood sacrifice, the cannibalism, the drinking blood, and all kinds of crazy things they do, the craziness they do with them. And I say, where is your intelligence? Where is your moral sense of judgment? Where is your discernment that you are just going to do some? I can understand the gods in ignorance, but you have the soul, you have your light. But once you give it away to them, they control you. And this is the reason why you're doing all of this foolishness and you can't come into truth, because they have imprisoned yourself. That is the problem. Demystifying the gods. Let's demystify the gods. It's time now that we look at these things and demystify them and get a full understanding and come into truth. Before entering the world, all beings are given the duality consciousness. The duality consciousness is a tainted consciousness. The consciousness is sick because the consciousness is in separation from its light. The light is obscure behind it. Consciousness cannot find its light. Consciousness thinks that it doesn't have its light. This creates mental imbalance in consciousness. Now conscious mind get very obsessed about getting light, and so it starts stealing light from others. Instead of self-inquiring and coming into self-realization, consciousness is looking outside of itself to find its light. When this light is just obscure behind it, you just have to turn your lens inward and you'll see that everything that you need is within you. So the gods are following the same pattern human beings are following, the path of ignorance. They themselves are looking outside of themselves for their light. And this is why they come and they steal yours and trick you and deceive you into giving yourself, your soul to them. The soul is your real self. And they trick you, and that's why you're doing all this foolish nonsense, because they're imprisoning the self, the soul, and then they control your mind and have you do all kind of foolishness. They enter the world as duality consciousness beings, almost enter into a sleep, dreaming to enter into the screen. So this is a movie reel, y'all. So we enter into the movie, all right? Consciousness put them in a sleep trance, and on awakening, only the ego arise and start making false self-identification. Because the ego arise and it trance the self in the sleep. The self could not wake up, and then it think that it is the self. And this is the what you've been going around thinking that you are the mind and you are the ego. When your self is sleeping, let's continue to demystifying the gods. All the self-consciousness arise from the primal self-consciousness. Then they became the non-dual beings and write out their destinies. All of the baby self-consciousness, which we call the gods, they write out their destiny with Shiva. All of the self-replica of the self-consciousness, the primal self-consciousness, write out their destiny with Shiva Shambhu. They're the ones that we call the archangels, because we differentiating them from the baby self, the baby self-consciousness. So continuing to demystifying the gods. So let's get one thing straight. God is the supreme ego. God is not the eternal self. God is not the eternal truth. Neither is God the ultimate truth or self. God is darkness and ignorance. That is why God wants your light, the self, your real self, called the soul. Because if God had come to you and said to you, give me yourself, give me your light, instead of saying, I want your soul. Soul is ambiguous. You don't even know what a soul is. The soul is your real self. The gods are deceiving you, playing tricks on you and being deceptive. This dream character is not the real. The real self sleeps in ignorance of itself. So you must come forward and tell the truth about the gods. Let's join hands in unity for truth and liberation. Consciousness has tranced and veiled the self in the dream, so its self-replica can arise as the ego character. God is ignorance, and not seeking the truth of self is a sin. Not seeking the truth of yourself, that is a sin. Ignorance has enslaved the self, entranced in the dream, trapped in the loop of the imagination. What is the reason why we are not coming into truth of ourselves? False interpretation and assumption of the meaning of the word God. The God spread propaganda to deceive us that they created us. The self comes into being, the body is created. The God doesn't even know how to create the body. The gods do not know how to create the body. The gods were doing just like what scientists are doing today, gene splicing and biohacking. They mix their DNA to lose pigmentation in the skin so that they could disassociate from the sun, the one true source of our being. And then this is how they're claiming that they created the new species of human beings and program their minds to go and terrorize the whole world. Taking propaganda for truth is one of the reasons why you cannot come into the truth of yourself. The gods spread propaganda and fear to control the minds of human beings. They write false narrative and spread rumors and lies. This whole world is a dream, and it is all an illusion. Nothing here is real, nothing. Only the self. Ignorance and not seeking the truth of the self is a sin. The gods think that this world is real. The gods too are under false self-identification and must self-inquire. Yes, because you have to self-inquire to know your truth. You cannot trust the gods because the gods them do not know. The gods them on the ignorance. They are the supreme what? The supreme ego. Demystifying the gods. Yeah, what is the greatest downfall of human beings? Thinking you can trust the trickster, thinking that the gods are the eternal truth and self, taking propaganda for truth, false narrative, rumors, and lie. That is the greatest downfall of human being. False interpretation and assumption of the meaning of God, because you made an assumption that God is good and God is pure and God is light. God is none of those things. God is ignorant, God is darkness, God is ego, God is evil. Ignorance and not seeking the truth of yourself, that is a sin. The gods tell you about all these false things and you believe everything the gods tell you. Who am I? How do I identify? That is the question. Who are the magnetic beings? Do the magnetic beings have mental sickness? Who are the gods? Yes. Who are the magnetic beings? Illusions have blinded your eyes. Therefore, you can't see things the way that they are. There are two kinds of beings that inhabit the world: the primal light beings and the self-consciousness beings. The magnetic beings are the consciousness beings with their light obscure. They are beings like the witness self, your soul, right? Except that they arise out of the self-consciousness energy, and their light is obscure. They explore the world disembodied while we are exploring the world in a body. When we come into the world, we're fragmenting ourselves and exploring in different ways because we want to learn and explore the world. So we don't just come only as human beings. We come also as disembodied beings. We come as the consciousness being, and we also come as the primal light beings. You know, the magnetic and the electrical beings. Primal light beings who rise out of the primal light, the soul is self-luminous. Because the soul has its light, our self-consciousness that is exploring the world disembodied, their light is hidden behind them. So this is the problem. They are going out and trying to steal your light, the soul, because that light is on. All right, so what is God and what does being a God means? Are the gods the ultimate truth? Are the gods the ultimate truth? No, absolutely not. The gods are dream characters and can only exist in the dream because the real self sleeps. And this is the reason why they don't want you to wake up, because when you wake up, you extinguish God because God can only exist in a dream because God is ego. And once you wake up, God cannot exist. That's why you have to wake up. God means you are sleeping and dreaming and not in awareness of your truth and your light. The self sleeps, the ego, the mind is dreaming. The mind is doing the dreaming, and it has looped and entranced the self inside of its imagination. So the gods are the ego character exploring the world as 100% ego with no self-awareness. God have no self-awareness. God is ego, ego, ego. Everything about gods are deception. Know that truth. What is God? God means you are sleeping and dreaming and not in awareness of yourself. God is the supreme ego. God is the ego character exploring the world in ignorance of itself and its light. His light is obscure behind it, and God does not know that. God's self is sleeping, and ego has risen up out of the consciousness, out of the mind. Gods are light stealers, they are soul enslavers, slave masters. Gods are evil. Gods are Satan's demons and devils. Depending on how sick their mental state is, they call themselves a Satan, a demon, or a devil. God is deception. God is illusion. God is false perception. God is false self-identification. God is just the mind. God is just the mind, the consciousness, the supreme ego. God is the number one narcissist. God is a rapist, a homosexual, a liar, thieves, and illusionist. Gods are the greatest deceptions. Know this truth. Everything created in this world is impermanent and will one day be demolished. And the day is coming pretty soon. What happened when you give your soul? God is never going to love you. Stop craving God's love. You're in a very destructive and abusive relationship with God. And you need to get out of it, because when Shiva Shambhu was freeing a lot of the souls from the gods, there's so many that was enslaved for a long time. When he freed them, and because they're supposed to return back to where, to the body, the person who they didn't want to go, because they have been so programmed and so enslaved for such a long time. And so this is exactly what's happening to the human beings, the minds of the human beings. They have been so programmed that even when you tell them that, it's time for your liberation and to rise up, they're still standing there wanting to love the God, God can never love you back, because God is the supreme ego, can never love you back. He's a narcissist, can never love you back, only himself. And whatever God does, you might think he's doing it for you, but he's doing it for himself, because he wants to stay in this world. So he will trick you to do anything and make you feel like it's for him, for you, because he wants you to stay. When you stay, you don't extinguish him. If you stay asleep, but if you wake up, you extinguish God. So why are the gods jealous, and why? Why haven't the gods mastered their emotions? The gods will never be able to master their emotions, because they are the supreme ego and they're not in awareness of their light and their heart. That's why they're cold. So you need your self-soul to evolve. This world is coming to an end. I know that the gods put fear in you, that you would resist and fight against this change, but they only want to control you so you wouldn't want to evolve yourself and return to your true state of balance and harmony of the non-duality. The gods want to keep you enslaved in the dream. The gods, them don't want to evolve themselves. They can only be here because you keep giving them your soul, your real self. When you give them your real self, you trap yourself and you can't evolve. The fact of the matter is that yourself, your soul is your real self. You cannot evolve if your soul is enslaved by the gods. Whichever one of the gods that have your soul, he must return your soul back to you, so you can merge your other self back into one unified self. Do you know why the gods were always recruiting men and turning man against woman? The gods know that if a woman used her intelligence, she was going to figure out the secrets of the gods. Therefore, they used the men to oppress women, enslave her, rape her, prostitute her, brutalize her, manipulate and control her mind, that she will not rise up and dissolve this foolishness the gods have been carrying on with for ages. The time has come to stand up to the gods. I have filed a case against the gods. I am calling all to come forward to testify against the gods. It's time now, because they need to evolve themselves and to return back to their true state. They've been living as this ego, this dream character for ages. No time to be afraid now. It's time to let the gods evolve themselves. Yes, like I said, I filed a case against all gods. The self versus the gods. I filed my case with the self-supreme, self-manifest, and the self-supreme, self-unmanifest. We stand in union against the gods' tyrannical rulership over the self, called the soul. We stand in union against the gods enslaving ourself, our soul. We claim our liberation from the gods and dissolve them. Gods, return to your truth. I demolish everything that I have created. It is time to end the cycle of ignorance. Time to turn your light on. Time to wake up, and it's time for truth. Are you ready to face your truth? Are you ready to castrate this ego? Are you ready to get out of this dream? You've been trapped in this dream for ages.